All right. Well, welcome everyone. We are here to talk about Microschools Week. This is our second annual year doing this. Nicole had the great idea last year, which we kind of quickly put it together. And this year we're trying to have more thought, more intention as we organically grow this grassroots movement. So to begin, let's introduce ourselves. I'll give it to you, Nicole.
Awesome, awesome. Good morning, everyone. If I haven't said it up to you already, I'm Nicole Stewart. I'm the founder and CEO of the National Association of Black Microschool Leaders. Um, we're a pretty new organization. We've been around for about 2 years, but we're a national venture philanthropy focused on community-led education. Um, at NAMBL, we really believe that the best educational solutions come from the communities that they serve. And so when local leaders are empowered to design schools for their own children, for other families, the solutions are stronger. They're more innovative, they're more sustainable. And so our work is centered on helping those leaders start, sustain, and scale high quality micro schools that put families first. The way we do that is through our membership network. We do it through the Micro School Launch Lab and System Accreditation, where we provide training to founders. We do it through community design days where we go into communities and help them design the schools that they want to see. And so our work is really about making this micro schools visible, accessible, and connected. And so we focus on preparing for the growth and sustainability of micro schools. And we believe that our founders, educators, community leaders, can be empowered to design their own schools that are high quality, schools that work, schools that are sustainable, given the right circumstances. And so we're preparing founders through this national movement of National Association of Black Microschool Leaders. It's so wonderful to meet all of you, and I'm excited to hear about what you guys are doing and how we can help.
Absolutely. I know it's been so exciting to see all the different avenues that you've been working in and how we continue to grow and expand. Um,
Whitney, I don't think we can hear you.
no, let's see.
Can
It's,
other people hear her?
I can hear you, Whitney. It's just lower than it was before.
how about now? Is it any better? Nope. Take out my recording. Is that any
Oh,
better?
there it is. There it is.
Yeah,
All
that's good.
right.
Yeah.
Um, and so my name is Whitney Retzer, and I'm with the Microschools Network, and we started this almost 8 years ago. And it was really prior to when there was avenues for school founders, when there was resources, when there was school franchises coming up on the scene. And we were operating our own micro schools on the East Coast, and we knew how challenging it was to start micro schools. You really felt like you were on island. We don't have the infrastructure that bigger communities do. And so we wanted to create ease. We wanted to create community. We wanted to create a place for schools to be found. And since we started almost 8 years ago, we have grown into a tremendous global community. We have more than 300 school members from across the globe, from the US, from Canada, from the Europe, from Middle East, from Asia. It's been really exciting to see micro schools pop up all over the world. And so we continue to grow. We continue to provide resources. We're working on a lot of new initiatives. We have a fantastic training opportunity to help micro school leaders as they're getting started. We piloted our first training cohort last year with the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and also on um, basically on best practice leading instructional leadership, as well as the operational and, let's say, the administrative side of running a micro school. And so we continue to provide lots of different resources, and we've got some new things cooking up. But yeah, you'll hear more about that in the coming months. So As we were getting started, some of the people were wondering, what is a micro school? And because some of the people are new into the micro school world. And so I just thought I would address some of the common traits that we have as a community. We are intentionally small schools. The student population is typically less than 200 students. And so what we found with members on our site is we have about half of our schools are less than 50 students, and then about the other half are greater than 75. So we can say on average, a lot of the micro schools that we're seeing is around 50 students. Micro schools are offering highly personalized and innovative curriculum. Typically, the subjects are integrated. Sometimes we think about in traditional settings where you take your math, you take your English, you take your science, but integrated curriculum is where we're talking about everything together, um, maybe through topical themes. Schools are addressing it in a lot of different ways, but we also have place-based and experiential learning. So our schools are out in the community. They're learning with other businesses. They're at museums. They're learning at the river, taking water samples. And then we're also using cutting edge technology in our classroom. There's ultimately an emphasis on mastery and understanding the material deeply versus maybe ticking off standards, the sort of things that we need to do in the year. No, we want to ensure that our students understand the material fully and holistically. And I think one of the other main common traits is that the teacher is more of a guide versus someone who's a lecturer. And so the teacher is typically accounting for the individual strengths of each student. They know their learning styles, they're understanding the existing knowledge that they do and don't have. And so we're meeting the students where we are, which really takes us back to the highly personalized learning style that micro schools have across the world. And so talking about the current landscape of micro schools, Nicole Stewart, I'm going to hand it over to you because I know you've worked with the school choice quite a bit.
Yeah. So shifting our conversation just a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about choice, because across the country we're seeing a major shift in how families access education, and I can't help but smile big. So when I think about it, um, there are more than half of the students in the United States are now eligible for some form of private school choice program, including vouchers, ESAs, tax credit scholarships, and education tax credits. We have 20 states with tax credit scholarships, and 10 states, including DC, have voucher programs. 1.5 million students use private school choice programs in about 30 states that have them. And so one of the fastest growing policies within this movement is ESAs, or education savings accounts. And so these accounts allow families to use a portion of public education dollars to customize their child's learning experience. ESA funds things like private school tuition, tutoring, micro schools, learning pods, curriculum, special education services, just to name a few. And so the states like Arizona, Florida, Utah, Iowa, Arkansas, they have really maximized choice and have expanded or launched universal ESA programs so that everyone in the state, regardless of income, can use ESAs. So I want to ask you guys a question really quick. Which one of the states that I just mentioned do you think was the first to adopt education savings accounts? You can put it in the chat. If you're a student and want to go ahead and answer that question. Someone said Florida. Anybody else? Okay. Who said Arizona? Because Arizona is correct. Arizona was the first in 2011 to adopt the ESA program, and since then they lit a fire, right? A slow burning fire, but a fire nonetheless. And so choice is expanding in a lot of ways. Um, let's see. Um, what the way choice is expanding, what this means for families is that their education options are expanding as well. And so families today are looking for micro schools. They're looking for other school choices that go beyond the traditional system. Hybrid models, tutoring networks, and specialized programs. A lot of parents for choice, school choice means having a voice in how their children are learning. And that's important. That's something that we haven't had, right? And for communities that have historically been limited to high quality education options, these policies opens doors, or they can open doors that didn't exist before. And so we're excited, but we have to be honest about a few things. Expansion doesn't automatically mean access, which brings us to another part of the conversation. We have to address the gaps in the school choice movement if we really want it to grow. And so as we grow, we know that these gaps do exist, and how to address them is the issue. When access to school choice doesn't always mean that we are participating equitably. That many families they still face barriers when trying to navigate these opportunities. So in some communities, there's still a lack of accessible options. So a few things that I've noticed or that I've seen as far as the research is concerned. Rural families are having a hard time finding choices. Students with disability are struggling to find appropriate options, and families with racial, ethnic, or religious identities are also less represented in the school choice movement. And so the other challenge is information access. So these same families, because they're not in the city, because they don't have access to these big events that are happening, because they're usually in major cities, challenges information access. So families sometimes struggle to get clear, reliable information to make the choice. And when that happens, families don't really have options. They have the options that they're given. They have the options that their zip code gives them, right? And so schools may also have like burdensome high application fees, unclear admissions, or maybe deadlines that don't make sense. For example, here in Florida, for our ESA, specifically the one, our PEP program, we have an enrollment period that's about a month long. And if you don't get in within that month, you don't have access at all. And so just think about the parents that don't know. They essentially have to wait till the next year in order to request the ESA. And so for a lot of times, it's just really simple. There's just not enough high quality education options to go around. And those barriers leads us um, to other questions, like especially in the movement where or for the founders where they're actually building schools. Who has access to capital to start new schools? Who has access to training and leadership development? Who has access to the networks that help schools grow and succeed? All of these things matter when you're creating high impact schools. And as micro schools expand, we also need to make sure that the ecosystem includes leaders from communities most impacted by education inequities. And so this makes access a really big deal. And the future of choice should include schools designed for communities by communities. And when communities lead education, we don't just expand options, we expand opportunity as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Nicole. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Um, I think also what's also really interesting is this is really the school choice is poignant for the US, but at the same time there are other places in the world that are also piloting school choice and public money for private education. Australia has some similar initiatives, and there's more growing school choice across the world. And so, as far as the global movement goes for micro schools, we've seen tremendous interest, tremendous growth. We get inquiries from all over the world. I found a small micro school group in Uzbekistan the other day. And so
Wow.
yeah, and so leading this global movement is it's parents, right? We have a lot of shifts that have happened since the pandemic. I think the pandemic really opened everyone's eyes to what was happening in and out of the classroom. We started to question what was useful. We've had big technological shifts that are allowing online learning, that are allowing flexible learning. We have digital nomads, and so, with those kind of digital nomads, there's visas, there's world schooling. There are families that want flexible hybrids. They want to take their kids to one place and then go to another place for half the year. Maybe one parent lives in one area and the other parent wants to live in another area to see grandparents across the world. And so, the micro school movement, with all of its flexibility, really enables this sort of flexibility. And as we've talked about, there's so much innovation that's happening that we're piloting within these schools. This is one of the big reasons that it continues to grow and expand. We've seen for-profit models blow up all over the world, charities, and really flexible hub and hybrid models. Some of the charities that we've at our microschool conference the last couple of years, we've invited some founders. There's a really fantastic person who's created schools on boats. And so the boat comes and picks up the schools in places like the Philippines, in places like Bangladesh, where maybe access to education isn't completely reliable due to government structures, due to maybe education access for girls, for a variety of different reasons. We had someone last year who's basically teaching kids in 3 sessions a day, and they're operating across Pakistan, across I think they're in 10 different countries, and the idea is that a lot of these children's parents were illiterate. Maybe they don't have access because they're living in slums in big cities. The kids they're not able to go to school because they do have to work. And so having short amounts of education each day and then having another shift enables these families to learn and also to make more money because the kids are now having an education and they're also teaching their families. So there's so many different types of micro schools that are proliferating, that it's been really fantastic to see this grow, to see this expand access and equity, and to see really creative ideas of how we approach schools. There's also school within school models. These are also starting to pop up where maybe you have a very traditional private school, and within the private school, they need to enable more flexibility. Maybe they have student athletes, maybe they have traveling parents, and so we've seen micro schools also pop up within the UK, within South Africa, school within schools, and I think within the US too. And so micro schools week. This was Nicole's great idea. So I'm going to hand it over to her to talk about how we first started on this adventure.
Yeah, yeah. So Micro Schools Week was a conversation. I think it was Whitney and I's first conversation. I think my exact words were micro schools need a PR campaign. And so this
Absolutely.
is, yep, this is a lot about what micro schools is. To make the choice more visible. And we're in the middle of a growing movement. School choice is a growing movement, right? Um, I happen to think, I wouldn't dare speak for Whitney, but I have a sneaking suspicion she agrees. Um, but I happen to think micro schools are the best choice of all the choices.
You're right.
So, right, thanks. So because we're in the middle of a growing movement, families, are actively thinking about rethinking education. We want to be considered in that process. There's increasing demand for personalized, flexible, community-based learning. Parents are tired and children want something more innovative, less antiquated, right? And as Whitney spoke about before, since the pandemic, I think families got a taste of what school could look like outside of the traditional classroom. Um, and so because of that, we have thousands of new learning environments popping up. But here's the thing, while interest is growing, awareness, specifically for micro schools, is still catching up. A lot of families are curious, they're searching, they're asking, what else is out there for my kid? And if we're not visible, if we're not telling our story, they may never find micro schools as an option. And that's a sad thing. And so that's why Micro Schools Week is so important. It gives us a moment to show up together on a national level and say, this is what's possible for your family. The reality is that micro schools are still one of the lesser known education options. As much as we live and breathe this work, there are still so many families who've never heard the term before. On top of that, there are also misconceptions. People don't understand what micro schools are and how they work, or even who they're for. And honestly, that's normal for something this innovative, this flexible, and this diverse. So we need recognition. And we also want to showcase the diversity of the schools that exist across the world. Whitney referenced some of them, and their work is international. And so we want people to understand that, to know that this is happening, and so that it becomes more mainstream, that it makes sense, right? They don't have to explain their choice to family members, right? Like, a lot of people have complained about having to explain their homeschool choice to family members. And we could alleviate that by doing a few things, right? Another thing is to create some discussions around the need for changing education. Um, a discussion within families and within the micro school movement itself is necessary. Micro schools, defining them, the standardization of micro schools, it's happening. It's going to happen. And so it's important that we start the conversation.
Absolutely. I think for me, what I think the most important part of Micro School Week is to showcase all the different types and to clarify misconceptions because all of the time I hear different misconceptions from various people. Micro schools are for these type of people. Micro schools serve these kind of students. And all of them are different and all of them are incorrect because micro schools serve everyone and they serve it in different ways. And that's the beauty of it. And there's so many different types. And so this is really why we wanted to create such a fantastic celebration. And so these are some of the weekly themes. And we'll talk a little bit about how you can get involved, but these are some of the ways, as we talked about, what are the common traits of micro schools? These are some of the things that we think that we can espouse together, that we have customized and personal learning, and you can display that, through things that are happening at your school, through ways that you're serving students in a different way, a true sense of belonging and community. Oftentimes in big schools and big environment, we feel more disconnected than ever. Our community kind of, especially those kind of middle school students that struggle to fit in, they're going into a bigger environment, it becomes challenging. Well, we're offering small schools, we're offering a sense of belonging, a community where your teachers know you well. There was Stuart Grauer was at our conference last year, and he said, "You're not a small school owner unless you know all the kids, all their pets, and the fights that happen in the car on the way to school in the morning." And so this is the kind of community and belonging where kids are truly known, you know, and this is also flexibility that fits every family. And so when we talk about the diversity of options, I mean, we have micro schools that are going 5 days a week, 4 days a week, 2 days a week that are optional in person or online learning. I mean, there's so many options within the micro school community. Innovation that inspires. We're talking about innovative curriculum, entrepreneurship. We're talking about kids doing just so many interesting projects and things that are outside of the box, as well as education that works for us, um, and future-proof education for a changing world. I think as we have AI coming more and more. We're talking about what is AI going to take, and having building these sense of community, building communication skills, all of these things that micro schools do really well. I think they're really providing students for the future preparation in a way that a lot of different education models haven't. And so, if any of these themes resonate with you, absolutely. You can share it on social media. You can write an article about it. If all of them, then sure, do it. But I think these are some of the themes that we've talked about, and you can also have your own sort of theme, but these are some of the main ones that we encourage people to discuss as they're talking about the movement, as they're talking about schools and the great diversity of schools around the world. So now,
Definitely.
and sorry, I just wanted to say too, you can feel free to write any questions or things in the chat as they come about, and then also we'll have an open question at the end of the session too. So how can you get involved, Nicole? Tell us.
So every great movement starts with you, right? It starts with the people. So let's talk about how you can actually plug into Micro School Week. Um, so you have to decide how you want to show up, right? Some of you are, I like to say, or when I create a movement, I create programs. It's a part of what I do. And so there's four things that I look for in movement building. That's organizers, it's founders, storytellers, and partners. And so I'm going to define each of those for you. Some of you will resonate with organizers because you're one of the ones that bring people together. It might look like hosting a local event, organizing a volunteer day, or even something simple like a group outing where you're wearing your micro school shirts and you're volunteering in some area. Some of you are founders. You have a school or you desire to launch a school, and this is your moment to really showcase that. So you can open your doors, you can host an open house, run a small event, or just share your why online during Micro School Week. People need to see what you're building. Right. And another great opportunity for founders, especially during weeks like this. I mean, this is the time where there is a really big push for enrollment, right? This is enrollment season. And so for founders, this is a great opportunity to do exactly that because everyone's actually amplifying Micro Schools Week. There's a school choice week if you don't already know that. And I like to kick off my enrollment season around that time, which is in January. And Micro Schools Week is a good bookend to that, so to speak. Another way that you can get involved is you can get involved as a storyteller. And honestly, this is where a lot of the momentum comes from. You can share a reel, post your story, tag MSN or NAMBL. You can bring others in as collaborators. You can create a PR campaign. You can send one of the letters, or we created a template that you can send to your local news station so that they can come and interview you, and they can come and see your school, and you can get press that way. You can host a parent Q&A. You can do a podcast, or even pitch your story to local news using those templates. So the more we tell the story, the bigger the movement gets. And last but not least, we need partners. Those supporting us through funding, training, advocacy, or amplification. This could look like sharing research, co-writing articles, and helping get these stories to the press. And so you can share your how-to guide. You can do a myriad of things. You guys are super creative. So just let me know which one of those things resonate with you most. Put that in the chat. I want you to decide. I want you to commit now. I want you to think about the role that feels like you. You don't have to do everything. You can do a combination of things. Like I feel like drawn to being an organizer and a storyteller. That's me personally. I want to know how you feel. What do you feel drawn to? Um, if you're unsure, um, you know, we have time, and not a lot of time. A little less than a month, a little more than a month left. Because Micro School Week isn't just something that you're attending, right? This is not, here's Whitney and I talking about micro school weeks, but this belongs to all of us. If you're building a micro school, if you're a part of this movement, micro schools week is yours. Okay, so we're building this together. You own it. And so you decide from year to year how you're going to present your micro school based upon needs. If you're new to the space, you may want to, and you're in the process of enrolling, or you're increasing your enrollment, want to increase your enrollment next year. It's a great time to focus on that, to become a storyteller. As you tell your story, people will become more attracted to your school. So it's really not about, you're not, when you talk about your micro school, or when you participate in Micro Schools Week, you're really talking to your community, not the larger audience, right? You're really informing your community. So you own this. So you get to decide what you want to do.
Here's a few examples that we had from last year. These are primarily storytellers, some of our partners that were telling their stories as well. For example, on the lower corner of your screen, we have Florida Citizens Alliance. And so this is a policy network, and they talked about some of the efforts that they're helping students out. We have a Greek micro school in the middle that simply talked about they wanted to join the movement. They wanted to talk about this is something global that's happening. Here's where we are. This is our video. This is why we started. And this is how we're quite different from traditional education options within Greece. And then we have another one in the other corner talking about stats, talking about the amount of students that are choosing alternative education. We had mini reels, lots of different Facebook, Instagram things that were happening. I think I saw Benita on the call as well. Hello. She also did several podcasts and different things. Last year talking about micro schools week, parents' choice, what sort of reasons that people had got into this school entrepreneurship or edupreneurship. So there's so many ways. And just like Nicole said, this is our time. This is a grassroots movement. This is talking about you can do it as big, make it yourself a big event, or you can do it as small as you want and do one post for the week. That's fine. That we appreciate it all. We're just trying to get bigger each year. We're trying to spread awareness. And so in order for you to confirm this participation, we've got a form on our website. I'm also going to send it around to everyone who signed up for the call today. And so that just talks about what sort of event are you going to do? Would you like to be identified? And then thereafter, I'll be sending out a variety of different things. I'll be sending logos. I'll be sending some different social media packs that you can use as you want. I'll also be sending, as Nicole mentioned, PR templates, press releases that you can have either for maybe a local news story or even to journalists to say, oh, maybe you want to write a story about why teachers are leaving traditional education models and opting to start their own school. So there's a lot of different ways to participate. And if you fill out the form, then I'm happy to send out all of this. Um, let's be using these digital tags for all of our storytelling online. So we have hashtags that we can look at through over the years and see how many people have been contributing and sharing. I'm also going to be sharing all of our social media handles. And so we ask that you add us as collaborators. That makes our job a lot easier to share your post. So you can add both I think that some of these are wrong for Nicole's organization, but I'll send them all out to you and mine as well too for Microschools Network. And the other thing too is when you're adding collaborators, if you have other friends in the microschool world, add them as collaborators, right? I mean, you probably have seen on Instagram when you have a post from 2 people or 3 people or 4 people, right? The more people that are collaborators on your post, the more people are seeing that. So you're expanding your reach. So if you want to team up with a couple of local schools in your area and say, let's all be collaborators this week, let's share as many posts as we can, and vice versa. So be sure to add us as collaborators so that we can easily share your information. And then if you want to add other policy networks, friends with micro schools, etc., please do that. And then, of course, you're free to email both of us anytime with questions or more. I'll be including Nicole's email and mine as well in the follow-up email tomorrow and the recording as well if you want to send that. So now I'd like to talk about if anyone has any questions or ideas, feel free to unmute yourself or put them in the chat.
I just want to add that I think, I think we're in this sort of time in history where um I don't know, when we started our school in 2016, so there was a lot of small schools that existed, but nothing sort of like our school that was all the things that Whitney and Nicole described, right? Very innovative, trying new things. And the early adopter parents were parents who often just couldn't find a right fit for their child. And so as you see in like a lot of sort of school movements throughout time, those parents, so for example, I worked in Korea in schools. And so the kids who didn't fit into a very rigid sort of school system, the parents are really struggling. And so there were sort of people on the fringes more looking for sort of alternative stuff. And we're at a point in history where that's shifting, where this is becoming less of a something on the fringe and more of something that is normal or is more mainstream. And so we're in that sort of time, I think, where parents are saying like, okay, there is sort of success. So I think in some ways, um, our audience is other educators, but our audience is parents. And so I think and empowering parents to say it's okay, your kid's going to be okay. In fact, they're going to thrive if you make this choice, because a lot of parents are still really scared. They don't know what this is. Am I hurting my child? Is it okay to not have them in a system that I grew up in? And so for me, I think one thing that would be really helpful is for to tag not only the other collaborators, but also to share this among your parents and have your parents share it as well to their friends. Because, word of mouth, and a lot of us know that if a parent tells other parents, my kid is there, they've been very successful, they've gone off, as soon as we had our first graduate who got into a great college and did all this thing, like then all of a sudden the parent network sort of boomed because there was like evidence that here's another parent, not just the educator who's trying to get you in to speak about how successful these models are and how great this is. So I would also add parents and have parent and really ask your parents to share it with their friends in their networks as well, so that because those parents will say, hey, you're my friend and your kid's in a micro school, I didn't know that, tell me about that. And in some ways that feels more comfortable, I think, to parents than going to the person who's trying to enroll you in their school. So I just want to put a plug in to really try and hit that population and have them get excited about it as well.
Absolutely right, Siri. Siri is the founder of Microschools Network. So, and she also has she also has a great YouTube webinar that we did last year on evidence and data to support decision making for small schools. And it has lots of different research studies, lots of different points over time in why this model is really successful, why it works, whether it's um, research on how children learn, on self-advocacy, a lot of different things. So that could also be a great resource for those school founders or those people thinking about founding a school and what kind of data points can help convince parents, just as another idea.
We have some questions in the comments. So one question is, will we gain access to these slides for reference?
Yeah, sure.
Whitney?
Yep, I'll share the slides, the presentation with everyone. I also saw Erica's question about homeschool co-ops considered microschools. Well, that's a great question, and nobody knows the answer. We have a presence on the John Hopkins Homeschooling Research Committee, and this is, well, I think at most conferences or anyone goes to, there's an ongoing, we should define it or we shouldn't. If we define it, then we start labeling ourselves and we trying to create a narrow walls. So I'll let you decide that for yourself if you want. I mean, from some accreditor standpoints, I know Cognia, for example, if the school is within someone's home, they will not accredit it as a school. So that's one way to look at it. From a research standpoint, microschools are considered homeschool adjacent by some communities. So yes and no is really the answer. And I think as a default, most of us in the microschool community have opted against narrowly defining it for the reason that once we narrowly define it, then we have more rules imposed. But that's up for debate, certainly.
Whitney, can I tag on to that real quick? Also, my name is Molly. It says my name is Micro Schools Week, but it's not. So I know for like I'm in South Carolina, and we just recently passed an educational scholarship trust fund, and just going to piggyback with not defining and not narrowing, like co-op, micro school. So for us in South Carolina, those funds can be used for micro schools, but they cannot be used for homeschooling or homeschooling co-op. So in regards to like marketing, posting, things like that, I would imagine if your state has like funding and legislature, that could help you determine if you want to put it in there or not. Just a thought.
Oh, good point, Molly. Nice to meet you as well. Does anyone else have any other questions? I'm happy to send out the presentation, recording, PR kit, some social media things, and collaboration handles and more. I was also thinking that for those who want to collaborate, we should also probably start something more open on social media so that we can have as many collaborators as possible on posts and things if people want to really expand their reach. Benita wrote she's also doing an Instagram live this year. So, oh, that's great news. Benita, what are you going to be
Awesome.
talking about?
Oh, there we go. Hello, everyone. And so, what I
Benita.
normally do is I invite anyone who would like to come on. We do an Instagram live. It normally varies between 7 or 8 p.m. on Central Time, and we do it for the whole week. I normally do one guest, but if we need to do two, that's great. And you come on, and it's free advertising. for your micro school. If you're not in micro school, you're like me, helping set up micro schools. We come on, we talk, no longer than 20, 25 minutes, and that's it. The podcast is almost finished, so that's on break because I do batch recording. But last year, Tina worked better when we did the Instagram Live, and then we promoted it throughout all of social media.
That was great last year. It was so fun to see the variety of guests and things that you hosted, Benita.
Yes,
So if you
love it.
if
Thank
y'all
you.
yeah, if y'all want, her email is in the chat and also her Instagram handle. And you're pretty present on LinkedIn as well, too.
Yes, so if you want to send me a DM on LinkedIn, and we can connect on there, that'd be great. It's still my name, Benita Gordon, on LinkedIn. We're on TikTok, and I also put it over on my podcast page and on the Micro Learn Hub page.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Hi,
Angela,
Whitney.
hi Angela. Good to see
Hi,
you.
everyone. I'm Angela. I live in Bermuda and I am the founder of a small school. And I put a question in because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get a chat time, but I put a question in there because I hear it and it's kind of resonated today is, are micro schools aiming to be considered a mainstream option? It sounds like we want to be, um, I say different, but at the same time, we want to stand out as different, but at the same time, we want to be accepted as a mainstream option. Am I hearing that correctly? Should I be thinking about this differently? What is as we're moving into this week, that that's a question that I have for myself is when I'm presenting micro schools or my school as a small school, am I thinking that I'm mainstream or not?
I would
Can
say, yeah,
oh,
Siri, please go.
I was going to say because I feel like I sort of started this conversation a little bit, but I would say Angela, I would say maybe mainstream isn't. I think more what Nicole was saying. I think access is really, at least in my opinion, like that we want to make sure that people have access to this, and then that would become mainstream, I guess, over time. But for right now, for me, it's about access in terms of location, who's invited to the table, in terms of, all the things that Nicole said in terms of access, but also in terms of money, right? And in terms of how you get there. So mainstream in the sense that it's a safe and okay choice that parents make, because I think a lot of parents right now think it's a sort of, a little riskier of a choice in some ways. And so that's at least my opinion. I don't know. Whitney, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say similar to you. I think our goal is to be mainstream in that there's so many choices eventually, and it becomes an option that isn't alternative. I think that we
Mhm.
really want to try and get away from alternative education as a thing, that this is a viable option. This is a great option. This is just one of the many, many options that you have. And as we're seeing micro schools change and innovate and develop. I mean, there's an entire district in Indiana that's operating all micro schools, right? A public school district. And so maybe we're going to see more of these, and maybe eventually it will become more mainstream in a variety of places. So I would say yes and no. And I think initially we kind of want to move away from it being the alternative choice just to being another great choice for
I'm
parents.
glad to hear that because that is kind of where Chatmore is right now. We're just another option. We're a smaller school option. We came through that sequence of events, right? Where we were the alternative school for the children with, or for the children who, where now we are an option. We're just the outdoor friendly small school. Some parents now, because of generation, like that's how I used to learn school, so it is becoming more of which is why I put that in quotes, kind of a mainstream. We're like everyone else. We're like the big schools, but just an option for. So I just wondered where we were going with micro schools, because that terminology is relatively new, isn't it?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
okay, so thank you
It's
for that. I
pretty new.
appreciate that.
If you don't mind me asking, Angela, how long have you guys been operating?
since 2004.
That's 2004. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I like. I like to hear about micro schools that have been around for a long time because it gives new micro school leaders a sense of um, a better understanding of the process, right? Because you're 1 year in, you're 2 year in, and you may be struggling to clarify who you are, but it really comes with time, right? Your results are will speak for themselves, right? Is
Yes.
that what happened with your school?
Yes, and I think it's come with that time, it's come with this very conversation, which is why I'm in this space. It's come with the fact that now the time has come where there are more of us. And
Mhm.
so the validation is a lot easier for new schools because you have, you can, Stuart Grower is another one. I think Whitney mentioned him earlier, the Grower School. They've been around, I think, a little bit even longer than us, and they have tons of information and research on, small schools. If you go to, I think it's Small Schools Network,
Small Schools
um,
Coalition.
Small Schools Coalition, that's right. You
Yep.
go to the Small Schools Coalition. He has probably the largest volume of small schools research that you can find. And, we have each other now, where it was kind of very kind of a sparse, like you kind of throw it from afar, small schools. But now we're coming together, and I think that helps us all. We can be a validation for the whole network, right? For the movement, if I might use your words. And so, yes, it's time. And I think I can say that kind of in an ambiguous way as well. It's time, right?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Angela.
Sure.
Um, Whitney, I just want to make sure that like when I'm posting and stuff, and especially if I'm collaborating and tagging, that my language aligns with, your thoughts. So hang on 1 second. Hey guys, I have to talk right now. Thank you. So for me, I'm trying to, in my area, change the narrative of alternative education, because when you think that, you think, like you said, oh, this is for the kids who, the kids with, blah, blah, blah. So for me, I'm trying to change the narrative and use alternative education in a positive way, like a synonym for choice. However, just to make sure I am aligned with Micro Schools Network, you would like to stay away from that language when talking about microschools.
If that feels good to you, if that's what I think that's fine. Like Benita said, we say innovative education,
I
innovative
like that better.
spaces.
I
Yeah,
like
I know we had some British colleagues on last month and they had called their group progressive education. And they said, you know what, looking back,
like
I don't think I would have named it progressive because it has so many different connotations. Um,
yeah.
but she's been doing great work for probably similar amount of time as us. So yeah, I think sometimes alternative denotes that you're not the main choice, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we kind of try and,
Well,
I don't want to, I'm not going to be policing anyone's language on anything. We really want to share and celebrate the diversity of schools. So if you want to be alternative, that's fine.
well, I just
That's
want to make sure, especially so like in my area, so I'm in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I am the only micro school. The next two closest are both 2 hours away. So for me, I have not run into with using the term alternative education. I have not run into that. But I can see how in a setting where, especially if you're in a bigger city or like a more populated area, where like that then could get you lumped into something that you're not. So I just want to make sure specifically for this micro schools week, if of course I'm adding as collaborators and tagging and things, I just want to make sure that I'm representing all micro schools and everybody's experience, like not just mine. So just wanted to check. So thank you.
yeah.
Can I just say one thing, Molly?
Mhm.
Alternative, I would just want to caution you a little bit because a lot of schools use alternative for students who have problems,
Right.
disruption problems or this, and then it just attracts a lot of those types of students. So if you're fine with that, um, that's great. It's just that they'll see it as an alternative is basically that they're having, behavioral problems or some other type of problems where they couldn't graduate or they're not, they've been expelled or something like that. So
Yeah.
that draws a lot of those types of students. And as I said, you just maybe want to not say, oh, we're the alternative that we're, taking this class of students and maybe broaden it up and not just narrow it because people think that that word is very narrowing.
Yeah, no, for sure. I completely agree. And so that's just like for my own little personal mission of changing the education world. When I'm talking or when I'm posting about like my micro school, I like to use alternative education option or alternate option because I want to change that narrative. Like for so long, alternative has been that. If you've been expelled, if you have behavioral problems, if you have, but like you said in my area, like it is just you have traditional setting, you have private school settings, and like that's it. So,
Because
but
also the traditional schools, the counselors and the police officers and the truancy officers, they all use that language, and then they also push when they
yeah,
hear an alternative. So it's sometimes not just, oh, how I want to change something or
yeah,
how, you know, just might,
no,
it
for
helps.
sure. I
Cautionary.
appreciate it, but I really like the innovative education. I wrote that.
Mm-hmm.
Ladies, it was all nice chatting with you. My
Charles.
children are being crazy, so I have to go now. But thank you all.
Thank
Well,
you.
thanks everyone. I think we'll close it off. We'll be sending out some information for everyone tomorrow, and I hope everyone's excited for Micro Schools Week. I know I am.
Definitely excited.
Awesome. Thank you for having us
Thank
and this
you.
platform. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank
You do
you.
the
Thank
same.
you. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.